I saw somebody that you can get a bag of popcorn, sit there and watch and go, ooh.
It's not one point guard in the league that wants to see Damon Stoudamire coming.
That boy Stoudamire, he's really excited.
Stoudamire is probably one of the quickest with the ball. You're at his mercy. You just hope that he's having a bad day.
He put together a great college career at Arizona, and did so standing at just 5'10" on a good day. In his best years, he was one of the fastest and quickest players in the league, who was fearless and had the ability to finish both inside and out. He possessed a great court vision for someone his size, and wowed fans with his passing as well as his scoring. He was supposed to be the face of the expansion Toronto Raptors, and while he was heading in that direction, management changes led to an immediate implosion, which saw him end up back in his hometown, playing for the Blazers, where his individual role would decrease, but his team success would increase. And although they never secured a title, the early 2000s Blazers gave fans a lot of great memories. And Damon Stoudamire was part of a lot of those great memories, but he was also part of some bad ones, as for as good as he could be, he was very streaky and had many inefficient games and years, as he shot below 44% every season of his career. And more importantly, he would often disappear in the postseason, but he was also unfairly labeled with character issues, as he had multiple run-ins with the law due to marijuana offenses. And yeah, he made some dumb decisions, and it was illegal back then, but as we're seeing, it should not have been nearly as serious as it was. But overall, Damon Stoudamire was an undersized point guard who stuck around as a starter in the NBA for over a decade, and had a lot of success while doing it. And even though he may not have been as consistent or efficient as the best point guards of his era, they likely would all tell you that Damon Stoudamire was a problem. So today, we're going to jog your memory and take a deeper dive into the career of the Mighty Mouse, Damon Stoudamire. A Portland native, Stoudamire was an immediate standout at Woodrow Wilson High School. He helped lead the Trojans to an overall record of 74-4 during his high school career, along with state titles in both 1989 and 1991. Stoudamire would end his high school career with averages of 26.1 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 9.2 assists per game, and would also be named Oregon Player of the Year twice, as well as a Converse High School All-American as a senior. Stoudamire would choose to play college basketball for Hall of Fame coach Lute Olson and the Arizona Wildcats. The Wildcats were a great team, full of future NBA talent, coming off a 28-7 season and a loss in the Sweet 16. And aside from forward Brian Williams, they were bringing back all their key pieces for the 92 season, and would have another great freshman recruit in Ray Owes, although he would take longer than Stoudamire to make an impact. The 92 Wildcats were led by senior center Sean Rooks and junior forward Chris Mills, who combined for over 32 points per game. And sophomore guard Khalid Reeves provided an extra scoring boost for a team with a top 20 scoring offense in the nation. Stoudamire would appear in 30 out of 31 games this year, coming off the bench every time, but still getting 18 minutes per game, and would finish third on the team in assists while shooting over 40% from deep. The Wildcats were ranked number 2 in the nation with 2 games left in the regular season, but would lose to number 8 UCLA, then number 10 USC, to end the year ranked 10th at 24-6. They would enter the tournament as a 3 seed, but would shockingly be upset by East Tennessee State in round 1. Although they lost, Stoudamire had a great showing off the bench, as he would score 15 points on over 46% shooting. But the Wildcats season had come to an abrupt end, with Stoudamire wrapping up his first year with averages of about 7 points, 2 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. Stoudamire was the starting point guard for the 93 season after the graduation of senior Matt Othick, but the bigger loss was Sean Rooks, meaning there was going to be a lot of responsibility on Stoudamire to reach another level this year, and he would show great improvement. Chris Mills was the team's unquestioned star, but Stoudamire and Reeves were developing into a great backcourt duo. Stoudamire would be one of 4 players to average double figures, while also leading the team in steals and assists. Additionally, at just 5'10", he would finish 4th on the team in rebounding, with the 3 guys ahead of him being 6'6" or taller. Arizona started the year slow, as they split the first 4 games, but would then win 22 of the next 23, including going 17-1 in conference play, and they would finish the year at 23-4, being ranked as a 2 seed going into the tournament. But similar to the year before, they would again be upset in the first round by a double-digit seed, as they lost to 15 seed Santa Clara, who featured a freshman, Steve Nash. Santa Clara defended Arizona great, as only one starter shot above 39% from the field. Stoudamire would have a nightmare performance, as he would put up 6 points on free throws while going 0 for 7 from the field and committing 6 turnovers in the loss. So it would be a bitter end to the year for Stoudamire, and one that he would have to make up for as a junior. But as a sophomore, he averaged about 13 points, 4 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 2.5 steals per game, as he was voted first team All Pac-10. The '94 Wildcats were the most successful team of Stoudamire's time in Arizona. A junior Stoudamire and senior Reeves proved to be one of the most dangerous backcourts in the nation, as they combined to average over 42 points per game, and they needed to, as Chris Mills had left for the NBA. And on top of being second on the team in scoring, Stoudamire would finish first in assists, second in steals, and third in rebounds, as the team finished the regular season at 25-5 and were a 2 seed going into the tournament. But this tournament would be different. Stoudamire would start out solid with 16 points and 9 assists in a round 1 win versus Loyola, and then follow that up with 20 points and 5 rebounds in a round 2 win versus Virginia. He would struggle in the Sweet 16 versus Louisville, as he would put up just 11 points on 2 of 12 shooting. Luckily, every other starter would score at least 11 points on at least 50% shooting, highlighted by Reeves scoring a game-high 29 to lead the Wildcats into the Elite 8. This would be Stoudamire's finest showing, as the Wildcats faced a 1-seeded Missouri team and won by 20, with Stoudamire dropping a game-high 27 points to go along with 10 rebounds, and Reeves adding 26 of his own, as Arizona was on their way to the Final Four. Sadly, their run would come to an end versus eventual national champion Arkansas, as Arizona just couldn't buy a bucket in a game when they needed it most, and Stoudamire specifically went ice cold, as he scored 16 points, but did so on 5 of 24 from the field and 2 of 13 from deep, as the Wildcats ended just short of a berth in the national championship. But Stoudamire's junior season would end with another first-team All Pac-10 selection, as he averaged about 18.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. Going into the '95 season, it was Stoudamire's team, as Reeves had left for the NBA. Stoudamire responded by leading the team in scoring, but would get help from his front court, as fellow recruit Ray Owes was now making a big impact, and center Joseph Blair provided some good contributions as well. Stoudamire would finish as a top 4 rebounder on the team yet again, and lead the team in steals and assists, with his 7.3 assists per game ranking 10th in the nation. Additionally, he would average 8 3-pointers per game, but he would shoot them at over 46%. And the highlight of Stoudamire's season would come on January 14th, when he scored a career-high 45 points versus Stanford. And overall, the Wildcats would finish the year at 23-7, and would enter the tournament as a 5 seed, the lowest seeding in Stoudamire's 4 years with the team. But unfortunately, for the 3rd time in 4 years, the Wildcats would be upset in the first round, this time by 12-seeded Miami of Ohio. Arizona struggled mightily, as all 5 starters shot below 39%, and even though Stoudamire led the team with 18 points, he would do it on 6 of 18 shooting, and commit a costly turnover late in the game that helped Miami put the game out of reach. But Stoudamire would end his senior season with his 3rd straight first-team All Pac-10 selection, and would also be named Pac-10 Player of the Year, as well as a consensus first-team All-American, behind averages of about 23 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 7.5 assists per game.
With the 7th pick in the 1995 NBA draft, their first draft and their first pick, the Toronto Raptors select Damon Stoudamire from the University of Arizona.
Stoudamire would be the first rookie drafted by the expansion Toronto Raptors, but he wouldn't initially be well received by fans, as they wanted Toronto to select UCLA's Ed O'Bannon. The Raptors had actually selected Chicago's BJ Armstrong with the first pick of the expansion draft just a few days earlier, but he refused to report to the team and was traded to Golden State for big men Carlos Rogers and Victor Alexander. So Stoudamire made sense to fill the Raptors' need at point guard, and it helped that their general manager was very high on Stoudamire and also happened to be a Hall of Fame point guard himself. Stoudamire would be the Raptors' marquee player in their inaugural season and was able to live up to expectations, as he had a phenomenal year. He would finish as a top 30 scorer in the league and second among rookies, while leading all rookies in assists per game, and his career-high 9.3 assists per game would also be good for 5th in the league, as he would record 37 double-doubles this year. Additionally, he would set a then-rookie record with 133 made threes. Stoudamire would be voted to the Rookie Challenge game, where he would put up 19 points, 11 assists, and 4 steals, to lead the East to a win en route to winning MVP of the game. Naturally, the expansion Raptors didn't have much else outside of Stoudamire, but 4th-year forward Tracy Murray would have his best season as a pro, coming off the bench for the team. And as expected, the Raptors were one of the worst teams in the league, finishing at 21-61. Stoudamire would record a 20-point, 12-rebound, 11-assist triple-double in a November 21st win versus Seattle, and dish a career-high 19 assists to go along with 17 points in a February 27th loss to Houston. But the highlight of the Raptors season would come on March 24th, when they would hand the Chicago Bulls one of their 10 losses on the year, in a 1-point victory where Stoudamire would drop a then career-high 30 points and 11 assists. Stoudamire would put up 30 points and 12 assists in the Raptors' next game versus Atlanta, then play just 3 more games before being shut down for the final 12 games of the year with knee tendonitis. But his stellar season would end with him voted Rookie of the Year, as he remains the shortest player to win the award, and his year would end with him averaging about 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 9.5 assists per game. The Raptors added their next piece in the '96 draft, when they selected UMass big man Marcus Camby with the 2nd overall pick. And with offseason acquisitions like Doug Christie, Walt Williams, and Popeye Jones, the Raptors were looking like a much improved team going into 1997. Thomas had also hired another former point guard to coach the Raptors in Darrell Walker, and him and Stoudamire would quickly form a strong bond. The Raptors improved on the year as they finished 30-52, but Camby would deal with injuries this year and be limited to just 63 games while starting only 38 of them, but would still have an effective season, which would see him named first team All-Rookie, and him and Stoudamire appeared like they could be a great duo, with Stoudamire as the offensive star and Camby anchoring the defense. Stoudamire upped his scoring to over 20 points per game for the first and only time in his career, as he would be a top 20 scorer in the league, and his 8.8 assists per game would be good for 6th in the NBA. Surprisingly, the Raptors would defeat the Bulls again this season on December 8th, as they would be one of Chicago's 13 losses on the season, and would also defeat each of this year's conference finalists during the regular season. Stoudamire would play in 81 games and reach double figures in 75 of them, while recording at least 30 points 9 times, as well as 31 double-doubles and 2 triple-doubles. But Stoudamire's second season would end with him averaging around 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists per game. The Raptors added a lanky high schooler named Tracy McGrady in the '97 draft, and it seemed like they were continuing their upwards trajectory. Stoudamire had declined to sign an extension this offseason to give Isiah Thomas more financial flexibility to pursue a big-name free agent in the following offseason. But then everything began unraveling, as Thomas would resign from his position in November after an unsuccessful attempt to purchase the team, and would be replaced by Glenn Grunwald. As soon as Thomas was gone, Stoudamire demanded a trade. But Stoudamire was a Raptor for the time being, and continued to put up similar numbers as he had been in his first 2 seasons. And Camby had improved further, as he was now the best shot blocker in the league this year. There were many teams interested in Stoudamire's services, but he was shooting down a lot of potential trades, as he made it clear to multiple potential suitors that he would not sign extensions with the team if they didn't retain or move on from certain players. Then finally on January 21st, Stoudamire to Houston was all but done, but then would be called off at the last minute. And at this point, Stoudamire was very frustrated and vocalized that he just wanted the inevitable trade to occur so he could get a fresh start. And then on February 13th, after 49 games with the Raptors, Stoudamire was traded to his hometown Blazers, along with Walt Williams and Carlos Rogers, as the Blazers sent a package headlined by Kenny Anderson, who would end up refusing to play for Toronto. Stoudamire would join an up-and-coming Blazers team with guys like Isaiah Ryder and Rasheed Wallace, as well as a 33-year-old Arvydas Sabonis, who would have the best season of his career in 1998. Stoudamire's scoring dropped significantly now that he was on a team with a lot of capable offensive talent, but he also really struggled shooting in his 22 games with Portland, as he would shoot just 36.4% from the field. However, he would still average over 8 assists per game. The Blazers were 31-21 at the time of the trade and went 15-15 the rest of the way, and their 46-36 record would get Stoudamire his first postseason appearance. And although the Blazers would get bounced by the Lakers in 4 games in the first round, Stoudamire's first playoff series would be the best of his entire career. He would start the series with a 12-point, 10-assist performance in Game 1, then a 17-point and postseason career-high 14-assist performance in Game 2, followed by 18 points in Game 3 and a team-high 24 in Game 4, as his averages of 17.8 points and 9.5 assists would end up being career highs for a playoff series. However, he would shoot below 40% for the series. But for his overall regular season, he played in 71 games and averaged about 17.5 points, a career-high 4.2 rebounds, and 8 assists per game. Stoudamire would be the only Blazer to start all 50 games for the lockout-shortened 99 season. Prior to the year, on January 21st, Stoudamire and the Blazers agreed to a 7-year, $81 million contract, making him the league's highest-paid point guard. Stoudamire would have a good year with the Blazers, but his days of being a 20-point-per-game scorer were over. However, the Blazers had a balanced scoring attack, with 5 players averaging over 11 points, yet no one reaching 14 points, with Stoudamire finishing 3rd on the team. His assist numbers also dropped, but he would still be 1st on the team. Stoudamire's weakness would continue to be shot selection and efficiency, as this would be the first season of his career where he shot below 40% from the field. But with a top 5 offense and top 10 defense, the Blazers finished 35-15 and would get a matchup with Phoenix in the first round. The Blazers would sweep Phoenix easily, winning all 3 games by at least 10 points. Stoudamire would have a great game too, with 22 points and 13 assists on 50% shooting, but would score a combined 17 points on 6 of 16 shooting in games 1 and 3. The Blazers would get the Jazz in round 2 and win the series in 6 games, but Stoudamire would really struggle against John Stockton in Utah, as he would average less than 9 points on under 35% shooting for the series, but would lead the team with 4 assists per game. The Western Conference Finals brought the San Antonio Spurs and their twin towers of David Robinson and Tim Duncan. The Spurs would sweep the Blazers, as after the first 2 games were decided by a combined 5 points, they would then win the next 2 games by at least 14 points each. This series included Sean Elliott's famous game winner in Game 2, a shot that should have only tied the game, as Stoudamire was at the free throw line right before the shot, but would make just 1 of 2 to extend the Blazers' lead to 2 points instead of 3. Stoudamire would be one of 2 players on the team to average double figures, but he was barely able to reach that mark, as although he would score 15 in Game 2 and a game-high 21 in Game 4, he would score 2 points in Games 1 and 3, and still shoot below 40% for the series, but would again lead the team in assists. But the Blazers still reached the conference finals, so there was optimism in Portland. And for Stoudamire's first full season in Portland, he averaged about 12.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. Portland went all in for the 2000 season as they brought in talented veterans Scottie Pippen, Steve Smith, and Detlef Schrempf. All 5 Blazers starters would average double figures, with Stoudamire tying for 3rd on the team and again finishing 1st in assists, with just 5.2 per game, and would only record 2 games with 10 or more assists, as his assist numbers had now dropped every season of his career. But this was also due to the depth of the Blazers affecting his usage and minutes, as his minutes had also declined every season of his career. But the Blazers were known for their defense, as they were a top 3 team in points allowed, and their elite defense led them to a 59-23 record. They would enter the playoffs as the 3 seed and draw the Kevin Garnett-led Minnesota Timberwolves in round 1. They would win the series in 4 games, and Stoudamire would play well for the most part, as he dropped at least 11 points on no less than 45% shooting in games 1, 3, and 4, but played horribly in Game 2, as he shot 0 for 8 from the field with just 2 points and fouled out. Round 2 brought a rematch with Utah, which Portland would win again in 6 games. Stoudamire would continue to struggle, as after a solid 14-point Game 1, he would fail to score in double figures the rest of the series, as he would be the only starter not to average double figures, and would also only shoot about 38% from the field, and his 3.4 assists would only be good for 3rd on the team. But the Blazers were back in the conference finals, this time against the Shaq and Kobe-led LA Lakers. But after splitting the first 2 games, the Lakers took games 3 and 4 to go up 3-1. Fortunately, Portland would respond by winning the next 2 to force Game 7 in LA. Stoudamire was wildly inconsistent for the series, as he had a respectable 10 points on 5 of 11 shooting in Game 1, but then put up a goose egg along with 4 fouls in just over 10 minutes of action in Game 2, which the Blazers would win by nearly 30 points. He would follow that up with a postseason high of 19 points on 70% shooting in Game 3, but then score a combined 6 points on 2 of 10 shooting in Games 4 and 5. He would then have a good Game 6 with 14 points and 7 rebounds on nearly 54% shooting, which brings us to Game 7, where he had just 6 points in just under 20 minutes of play. But the Blazers looked to have it in the bag, as they were up by 15 as the 3rd quarter came to an end. But then Portland went ice cold in the 4th, and the Lakers went on a run that saw them take the lead in the closing minutes of the game. And although the Blazers hadn't done anything to help themselves, the Lakers were also getting some big breaks from the refs, with the biggest being a no call on a blatant foul of Steve Smith by Shaq, with less than a minute left in the game, that could have brought the Blazers to within 2. And with the Lakers gaining possession, the Blazers had to foul, and the Lakers would put the game out of reach. So the season ended in heartbreak, but for Stoudamire's regular season, he would average about 12.5 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. Portland traded seldom-used big man Jermaine O'Neal to the Pacers in the offseason for more veteran depth, as they received Dale Davis in return. They would also decide to trade away solid forward Brian Grant for Shawn Kemp, who declined quickly upon his arrival to Portland. Aside from that, Portland brought back virtually the same team, and Stoudamire had an improved year. He would play and start in 82 games for the first time in his career, while upping his numbers across the board, as he would finish 3rd on the team in scoring and 1st in assists. But to get an idea of Stoudamire's efficiency issues throughout his career, you have to look no further than his career-high shooting percentage this year, which was just 43.4%. Stoudamire's improved year would see him record 53 games in double figures, 4 double-doubles, and 1 triple-double, as he helped the Blazers to a 50-32 record, which would only get them the 7 seed and a rematch with the Lakers. But the 0-1 Lakers weren't going to be stopped by anyone, and they ran through Portland in 3 games, with an average victory margin of nearly 15 points. However, Stoudamire would play great, as he led the team in scoring and assists on over 41% shooting, as he would score at least 18 points in 2 out of 3 games, including a playoff career high of 25 in Game 3. And for his regular season, he would average about 13 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists per game. The Blazers were missing some pieces going into the 0-2 season, as Steve Smith was now in San Antonio and Sabonis had retired. However, the Blazers did make some solid additions, as they selected Michigan State big man Zach Randolph in the draft. The Blazers didn't lose Smith for nothing, as along with Steve Kerr, they received swingman Derek Anderson in a sign-and-trade, and they would also sign the self-proclaimed Kobe stopper Ruben Patterson. Stoudamire would up his averages across the board again this year, but his shooting would drop to just over 40%. However, he would deal with some legal issues this year, as he and his father were charged with felony possession of marijuana after police responded to a call from his neighbors that his front door was open and his burglar alarm had been going off. Police arrived, and while searching the house for intruders, found a large bag of marijuana in the attic. However, these charges were eventually dropped due to the search being unlawful, as police did not have a warrant. So Stoudamire was again a top 3 scorer on the team, and Bonzi Wells would turn in the best season of his career. And the Blazers would hover around 500 for the first half of the year, before going on a 12-game win streak shortly after the All-Star break, which helped them finish the year at 49-33 and earn a playoff berth, where they would once again be matched up with the Lakers. For the 3rd straight year, they would be eliminated by LA, and would be swept by them for the 2nd straight year. However, this series was closer, as every game was decided by 8 points or less. But Stoudamire would really regress, as he had one of the worst series of his career. As a starter, he would average just 5 points and shoot a combined 5 for 22 across the 3-game series. And he would end his regular season with averages of about 13.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 6.5 assists per game. The Blazers looked quite similar in 0-3, and even welcomed back Arvydas Sabonis, who came out of retirement to play one last season, in which he wouldn't have much of an impact as a bench player. Stoudamire had a terrible season, as he would play in just 59 games and start 27 of them, while averaging career lows across the board and shooting below 38%. But he had a whirlwind of a year. First, on November 22nd, Stoudamire and Rasheed Wallace were driving back to Portland after a game against Seattle, when they were pulled over for speeding. But after the officer smelled marijuana, a search of the vehicle turned up 1 gram of weed, resulting in a misdemeanor charge for both players, which they denied, and eventually each came to plea bargain agreements. Shortly after this, Stoudamire fell out of favor with new coach Maurice Cheeks, and would often be left out of the starting lineup in favor of a 3 swingman lineup made up of Pippen, Anderson, and Wells. So after averaging no less than 30.4 minutes per game in each year of his career leading up to this season, he was only given 22.4 minutes per game this year. He would have just 19 games where he scored in double figures and record double-digit assists only twice. And Stoudamire's legal issues were just a drop in the bucket for a Blazers team who seemed to be in the news every other week this year. But somehow they would improve on last season's record and finish 50-32 and push a great Dallas Mavericks team to 7 games in the first round before losing Game 7 and the series. Surprisingly, Stoudamire would get the start in 6 of the 7 games and play extremely well, as he would finish 3rd on the team in scoring and 1st in assists, as well as average over 5 rebounds. Most impressive was Stoudamire's field goal percentage, as he shot 45.6%, which was his highest for a playoff series in his career up to that point. He would have just one game where he scored less than 14 points, and would even have a 17-point, 11-assist double-double in a Game 4 win. But the Blazers season ended with Stoudamire averaging about 7 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. Stoudamire would be in another interesting situation during the offseason, as he was arrested at a Tucson airport on July 3rd for trying to pass through security with around 40 grams of weed. As a result, the Blazers would suspend him indefinitely and fine him $250,000. Instead of the suspension, Stoudamire enrolled in a drug treatment program and was in the starting lineup for the Blazers' first game of the year, where he would drop 16 points and 6 assists on over 58% shooting, for a Blazers team that looked even more different, as Pippen had left in free agency and returned to Chicago, while Bonzi Wells had been traded to Memphis in the offseason, and Zach Randolph had elevated himself into the starting lineup. Stoudamire would return to his usual level of play, as he would finish 4th on the team in scoring and 1st in assists. But then the Blazers, who were sitting at 24-25 on February 9th, made a blockbuster move when they sent a package headlined by Rasheed Wallace to the Hawks, for a return that included players like Sharif Abdur-Rahim and Theo Ratliff. Abdur-Rahim wouldn't have nearly the same impact Wallace did, but Ratliff would be a welcome defensive presence, as he averaged 4.4 blocks per game in his 32 games with Portland. Stoudamire's return to old form saw him score in double figures in 59 of the 82 games he played in, as this was also the last season of his career in which he started or played all 82 games. He would also have 10 games with double-digit assists and 7 double-doubles. But Portland would finish at just 41-41 and would miss the playoffs for the first time since Stoudamire joined the team. And for the regular season, he would average about 13.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. The Blazers had picked up another lefty guard in the offseason when they traded for Nick Van Exel, and would also get a full season of Abdur-Rahim as well as Darius Miles, who they had traded for during the previous season. Randolph and Abdur-Rahim were the team's top 2 scorers, but they would each miss significant chunks of time during the season. However, Stoudamire, who played 81 games, would have his highest scoring season since his time in Toronto, to again finish 3rd on the team in scoring, as he would have 58 games in double figures, including a January 14th explosion for a career-high 54 points in a loss to New Orleans, where he shot over 62% from the field and made a career-high 8 3-pointers. But the Blazers had one of the worst offenses in the league, to go along with a middle-of-the-pack defense, as they finished the year at 27-55 and missed the playoffs again. But Stoudamire would end his season averaging nearly 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 5.5 assists per game. Stoudamire's contract was up, and the Blazers were focused on rebuilding and had no intention of re-signing the soon-to-be 32-year-old point guard. So on August 5th, he would sign a 4-year deal with the Grizzlies, where he was expected to take the spot of Jason Williams, who had just left for the Heat. So the veteran Stoudamire joined a Grizzlies team led by Pau Gasol, but also featuring sharpshooter Mike Miller and elite defender Shane Battier. Stoudamire's averages had dropped after 27 games, and he was shooting below 40% for the second straight season. But then with the Grizzlies sitting at 17-10 in a game against Portland, Stoudamire would tear his patellar tendon, and after surgery would miss the remainder of the year. The Grizzlies would finish 49-33, but were swept by Dallas in round 1. And Stoudamire's shortened season saw him average about 12 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. Stoudamire returned to play 62 games in the 07 season, but he had really slowed down, as his averages dropped significantly and he shot below 40% for the 3rd straight year. It also didn't help that Pau Gasol missed the first 23 games of the year recovering from a broken foot he had suffered in the FIBA World Championships. And without him, Memphis started the year 5-18 and would end with an awful 22-60 record. Stoudamire would still manage 17 games scoring in double figures, along with 2 double-doubles on the year, as he finished his season averaging about 7.5 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. The Grizzlies drafted Mike Conley in the 07 draft, and initially Stoudamire would act as a mentor for him. Stoudamire was the starter to begin the year, and Conley was out with an injury for about 6 weeks early in the season. But once he returned, he was inserted into the starting lineup, and Stoudamire was placed on the inactive list, which led to him seeking a buyout from Memphis. He would be bought out on January 28th after appearing in 29 games for the Grizzlies, and then signed with the Spurs about a week later for point guard depth. Stoudamire averaged the lowest minutes of his career during his time in San Antonio, appearing in 31 games and starting 4 of them. but he would make a return to the playoffs, where he would appear in 7 games, averaging 5 minutes per game, for a Spurs team that made it to the conference finals before losing to the Lakers. And Stoudamire's regular season ended with him playing 60 games and averaging about 5.5 points, 2 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. And that was it for the career of Mighty Mouse. He had to deal with unfair labels and reputations due to his marijuana use, which was perceived completely differently than it is nowadays, and that unfortunately affected how he was perceived and treated. He already had developed a bit of a reputation before leaving Toronto, due to being straight up about where he would and wouldn't sign. But he was just being honest, and it was again a sign of the times, as something like that, which has become normal or even expected in today's NBA, was pretty taboo back then. On the court, he was fun and exciting, and possessed great court vision for someone his size, as well as an incredible knack for rebounding. But he was just so streaky, and his career 40.6% from the field shows that a lot of nights he was a liability, but he also had the ability to get his points in bunches, even at his small stature, and would do so often, especially in Toronto. The Raptors may have been on the verge of something special with him, Camby, and McGrady, but that imploded quickly. And even though his role was much smaller in Portland, he was a key member of the great yet infamous Blazers teams of the early 2000s. He improved his reputation near the end of his career and provided a good veteran presence. And regardless of his off-the-court issues and on-the-court struggles, being almost exclusively a starter for over a decade at just 5'10" shows just how special Damon Stoudamire really was. But that's it for today's episode. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more episodes like this one. If you liked it, check out this one on his teammate during his early career in Toronto, or check out this one on one of his teammates in Portland. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.